Hi, I'm Abdulrahman Jamil. In the last video, we discussed about using the sort method to sort an array of strings in both ascending order and descending order, using the reverse method and a custom compare function, which is going to make the sort method sort the array in descending order. So if you have not watched that, you can check the description of this video. I'm going to link it there. And also, I said in that video that I use my mobile device code, so this is not the usual VS code that most web developers use. So I'm using a text editor known as SPCK editor, as you can see it here, SPCK editor. So I'm also using a script here, which is this eruda.js. You can search about it on Google. It is the one that gives me the console functionality in the browser. As you can see here, we have console elements, which generally on Android browsers there is no console, but by using that script you can actually enable console for the browser. It is a JavaScript file which carries out everything, so you can search about it on Google and read more. Now back to our JS folder. Now, in the previous video, we discussed about sorting strings and using a compare function. A simple implementation of the sort method. Now, in this example, let's first discuss about sorting numbers. So let me create an array of numbers first. Let's say let array num be equal to 45, 90, 10, 100 and 22. Now let me sort it using the sort method. Now, as I said in the previous video, the sort method sorts array by default in ascending order. So by the time we log the sorted array into the console, we are supposed to have 22 before 45, 90, then 100, but it's not going to be so because of a reason. But let me just sort it first by saying array num dot sort. Array num dot sort. By the way, if you are not subscribed to my channel, consider subscribing, because I am going to be releasing videos about web development and everything software in general. Let me just say it that way. Yeah, so array num dot sort. Then I can now say console dot log array num. Now let me reload this. Now look at what we have: 100, 22, 45, then 90. Normally we expect 22 to be first, then 45, then 90, then 100, but it's not so. Why is it not so? Let's see what's happening when the sort method is trying to sort this array. Now 1 in 100, we have 1, then we have 22, we have 2 in 22, then 4, then 9 in 90. That is what the sort method is taking into consideration to this array, because 1 comes before 2, and 2 comes before 4, and 4 comes before 9. So to the sort method now, this array is already sorted because it's sorting it as a string, not as numbers. As strings, the sort method is sorting this array as strings, not as numbers. So 1 is going to be before 2, then 2 before 4, and 4 before 9. So what do we do to go around this? We use a custom compare function. As I said in the previous video, that we can also use a custom compare function with the sort method, which means that we are going to be comparing the values ourselves and then giving the sort method what to do, telling the sort method what to do by returning a number from the compare function. So how does the compare function work? As I said before, this sort method can take in a parameter which is going to be a function, and this is what I've been referring to as a compare function. As you can see here, compare fn. Now we have to pass in a function here. We use it here when we sorted this array in descending order. So if you have not watched the last video, kindly watch it. Actually, it's kind of a long video, but I think it's very explanatory. So let's continue. Now when we define the function, that we used the ES5 way of, the older way of defining function in JavaScript. So let's use the ES6 arrow functions this time. How do we do that? By doing this, then we can now say item 1 and item 2. So if you have not watched the last video, kindly watch it, because I'm not going to be explaining so much about this compare function anymore. Now, as you can see, we have this array num.sort item 1, item 2, which are items from this array num. So it can be any two values from it. Now what we want to do is that we just want to say if, normally the compare function is comparing the items. It's comparing the items as how do I say it? It's comparing the items as strings, but here we want to compare the items ourselves as numbers. So the simplest way to create these sources, to define this compare function for comparing numbers, is by saying return return item 1 minus item 2. So it's that simple. Return item 1 minus item 2. What does that mean? Let's say, for example, 90 and 45 are item 1 and item 2 respectively here. The sort method is going to call this function several times, passing passing these array items as parameters to it. Now let's say item 1 is 90 and item 2 is 45, for example. Now item 1, 90 minus 45, which is going to be 45, which means this function is going to return a positive number. And remember, whenever we return a positive number from this compare function, it means that we are telling this sort method that whatever item 2 is should come before item 1 in the result. That is 90 and 45, for example. 90 is item 1, 45 is item 2, which means that we are telling, when we do 90 minus 45, it's 45, then we return that 45, and 45 is a positive number. So it means that the sort method is going to make 45 come before 90 in the sorted array. So let me change the 2. Let me say 90 here, so it won't look as if it's what we normally define. So 90 and 45. Now by the time we log the new array num to the console, we are going to see that 45 is going to be before 90. Why? Because when the sort method calls the compare function passing 90 and 45 as item 1 and item 2, where this item 1 here can be, I said that item 1 is 90, and just for example, anything can be passed to the compare function. This can be 145. So if we return a positive number from this compare function, we are telling the sort method to put item 2 before item 1. Remember that both item 1 and item 2 are going to be values from this array. So by doing that, this array is going to be sorted. The items in the array, they are going to be sorted as numbers and not as strings, and they are going to be sorted in ascending order, because I gave an example already. Let me choose another one here, 122. Let's say item 1 is 22 and item 2 is 100. By the time we do 22 minus 100, we are going to be having minus 78, which means that we are returning a negative number, and returning a negative number means that item 1 should be before item 2. So 22 is going to be before 100 because item 1 is 22 and item 2 is 100. So like that. So let me log it into the console now by saying console.log array num. Remember that the sort method, it changes the original array, because the original array here is array num, and by the time we sort it, it's going to change this array num array. So even if we assign it to a new variable, it's still going to be the same thing. I said that in the previous video. So let me just come here back to the browser. I'm very sorry if this video, the quality is kind of rubbish, because I'm using an Android device, and this thing, they're just, I'm very sorry for that. So I want to preview this in the browser now. Now, as you can see, we have 22, 45, 90, then 100. What does that mean? That simply means that we ourselves, we have compared the values in the array instead of leaving that job to the sort method. So by comparing the values in the array ourselves, we make sure that the array is actually sorted in the right order, and we make sure that the items are sorted as numbers and not as strings. I hope that's clear. So to make the number array num array to be sorted in descending order, we can just say return item 2 minus item 1. Return item 2 minus item 1, and let's preview this. So by the time we reload it, as you see, 190, 45, and 22, which means that we are now returning, because we are now returning item 2 minus item 1, which means that if, for example, item 2 is 45, item 1 is 90. Now 45 minus 90 is going to return a negative number, and returning a negative number means that item 1 should be before item 2 in the sorted array. So 90 will remain before 45, because 90 is item 1 and item 2 is 45. And now by the time we now carry out the subtraction, it's going to be minus 45, which means that we want item 1 to still remain before item 2. That's it. So you can also carry out the same thing. I mean, the same thing needs to happen when you pass 45 and 100. It's going to be 100 minus 45, which means the function is going to return a positive number, which is 55. So item 2 is going to be before item 1, which means 100 will come before 45, like that. So this is the simplest way to do it. We can just go, if we want it to be kind of longer, the one we did up here is for strings, but when we are dealing with numbers, it's better to just use this item 1 minus item 2 or item 2 minus item 1. So it's very simple. So I can still say if item 1 is greater than item 2, this one for descending order, I can still say return, if item 1 is greater than item 2, return minus 1, and if item 2, or I can say if item 1 is less than item 2, return 1, else return 0. So why am I not putting else, if else? It's simply because I don't need it. Here we are just returning, we are not writing a block of code. If I have to write a block of code, then I'll just put something like this here. So I'll put something like this here, but I don't need it because I'm just returning. So whenever you're using the if statement and the how do I say it? What you want to do when the condition is true is just to be written on a line. You don't have to put the parentheses, this and this. So that's it. Now this is still going to be to make this array to be sorted in descending order. So let me just go back to the browser and see what's happening. Refresh. As you can see, 190, 45 and 22. So it's still the same thing. So let me just clear it like so. Yeah, let me make this a comment. Now in the previous examples, we have used the sort method to sort an arrays of strings and arrays of numbers. Now how about if we want to sort arrays of objects? So let's say, for example, let me paste this. I just copied this object that I created recently. So now we have let people equal. This is an array of objects. This is the first item. Name Secret Brian, age 97. Name Steve Jobs. And I just put these random ages like that. So it's not the array ages kind of. So I just put random ages there. Now if we are to sort these people array, if we just call the sort method on it, it's going to return this same array of objects without sorting anything, because there is no way we can just call sort. We have to pass a compare function, which is going to determine how we are going to compare the values in this array. For example, we might want to sort them based on this name or based on this age. Any of the two, we might want to sort them like that. So let me say persons now. Let persons equal people. I'm defining a new variable here because I don't want the sorted array to be the same as the original array. So I want to copy the content of the people array by using array destructuring, which was introduced in year 6. I'm going to link a blog post I wrote about array destructuring in the description of this video. I hope I remember. So let me say people. So this is going to copy the content of the people's array and store it in a new array. Then we now want to say dot sort like this. So remember that the compare function takes 2 parameters, because what I want to do right now is the compare function, item 1 and item 2, like that. So actually I'm using an arrow function. I forgot to put the arrow. Yeah, that's the arrow there. So I want to sort it based on the name. Each and every one of these objects, they have name properties. So I want to sort this array based on the names. So let me just say so here I want to use okay, sorry, I made a mistake. This dot here is known as the spread operator. It's known as the spread operator. So I'm using it to copy values from this people's array. I'm copying it into a new array, which is going to be stored inside of this persons after sorting it. So I want to use array destructuring here now to define 2 variables. So I want to say name 1 and name 2. So name 1 comma name 2. I'm going to briefly explain how this array destructuring works. When we are defining 2 variables simultaneously, it might not be 2, it might be more. So I'll just say name 1 name 2 is going to be equal to item 1 dot name comma item 2 dot name. Now what does this do? So I said let name1 name2, which means I want to define two variables here. I'm defining name1 and name2. Now name1 is going to be equal to item1.name, and name2 is going to be equal to item2.name, because this thing here is an array. As you can see, this is a pair of brackets, and this one is another pair. So the first value here is going to be the value of this first variable. The second value here is going to be the value of this second variable. It is that simple. Very, very simple. Now name1 is now going to be item1.name. Now what is item1? What is item2? As you know already, item1 and item2 are going to be values from this array. So item1 is going to be an object, item2, so it can be any of these four objects, because it is the sort method that is going to call on this function, and it is going to pass any of these array items. In this case, the items are objects, so it is going to pass any of these items to the compare function to compare them. So we are now done that we will compare the names, because by default the sort method cannot just look into them and start comparing the name. That is why we have the option to use a compare function for the sort. Now name1 is going to be the name. Let's say for example, for this example we are going to be using these two just for explanation purposes. So name Warren Buffett, name Jeff Bezos. I mean these two objects, so they are going to be our item1 and item2, like that. So let's continue. I now want to say that if let's say this is our item1, this object containing Warren Buffett 76 is our item1, and this one containing Jeff Bezos and 65 is our item2. Now item1.name is going to be Warren Buffett, so name1 is going to be Warren Buffett here, then name2 is going to be Jeff Bezos automatically, because it takes the value of item2.name. So I now want to say that if name1 is greater than name2, return 1, which means I'm returning a positive number, which means returning a positive number actually is going to make item2 come before item1. Remember that. And now I just said if name1 is greater than name2, which means that Warren Buffett is going to be our name1 here, just for explanation purposes. Jeff Bezos is going to be our name2, and because Warren Buffett is actually more than Jeff Bezos, because Warren Buffett starts with W and Jeff Bezos starts with J, because of that this function is going to return 1. Okay, that's the first possible occurrence. Now we want to say if name1 is now less than name2, because that's also possible, then we want to return -1 in that case. Also we want to return 0. Now let me quickly explain what's happening here. Warren Buffett is our name1. For example, you know the sort, I said it before that the sort method is going to call on this function. Here I'm using an arrow function. I can quickly convert it to the older way of defining function. So I can just say function, and I'll remove this arrow here. So it's now a normal function. That's it. But I prefer to use arrow functions. So let me just undo that. Now you can read more about arrow functions on Google. Just search ES6 arrow functions. So they were introduced in ES6. If you don't know what they are. So if name1 is greater than name2, we are returning 1. In our case, name1 is Warren Buffett, because we are getting item1.name. And remember, any of these things can be item1 and any of them can be item2, because it is the sort method that will pass each and every one of these array elements to this compare function. So we are now getting the name property and we are now comparing the name property, and then based on the name property we are returning a value which is going to determine how this array will be sorted. Now if name 1 is greater than name 2, we are returning 1. So for example, Warren Buffett is greater than Jeff Bezos, returning 1, which means we want item 2 to be before item 1. So this object here in the sorted array is going to be before this Warren Buffett, because J is smaller than W. If both are W, uppercase W, then it's going to look to the next character like that. So that's why I say if name 1, name 2, if name 1 is greater than name 2, return 1 and the rest. So if name 1 is now smaller than name 2, we are returning -1, which means that item 1 should remain before item 2 in the sorted array. And if the two are equal, if name 1 is not greater and it is not lesser than name 2, then we just want to return 0, which means that the two are just going to remain in their order, which means if item 1 was before item 2 in the array, item 1 will still remain before item 2, and if item 1 was after item 2, then item 1 will still be after item 2, because the name property is what we are comparing here. Now let's console log persons, console.log persons, like that. Let's see what happens. And this is it. I'm very sorry about this thing coming up. I don't know why it's behaving like that. I'm using a small mobile phone. The RAM is so small. Wow. Well, this is the result. An array of objects. So let's view the objects here. As you can see, Jeff Bezos comes first because it starts with J, then Sergey Brin, then we have Steve Jobs, then we have this object of Warren Buffett. So I think that's understandable. As you can see, it has been sorted down. The first item in the sorted array is Jeff Bezos, because we are comparing the names. Jeff, because Jeff starts with J, S-E, then S-T, then W-A. I think that's very simple to understand. Now, to make it to be in descending order instead of ascending order, we can just change -1 to 1 and 1 to -1 like this. So by the time we preview it in the browser now, we should just see Warren Buffett is now the first, then Steve Jobs, then Sergey Brin, then Jeff Bezos. As you can see, we've just used the sort method to sort an array of objects. So if we also want to compare, we also want to sort these people array based on the age, we can also do that. So how do we do that? Let me say let persons 2. So I'll say let persons 2 should not be equal to, I'm going to copy the values from that people array again, the array that has not been sorted. Then I'll now say dot sort again. Then I'm now going to pass a compare function, item 1 and item 2. Remember that the compare function must always take in 2 parameters, like that, item 2. And if you are not comparing the values, you just want to return random values, but mind you, that's going to give inaccurate results. So item 1 and item 2, then we have this, like that. So this is another sorting that we want to do, but we want to sort based on the, how do I say it, based on the age and not the name this time around. So let me just use array destructuring again. I'll say let age 1, which is going to be an array like this, age 1 and age 2. Let the 2 be equal to item 1.age, item 1.age, then item 2.age. So it's that simple. Age 1 is going to take the value of item 1.age. As I explained before, that it's going to be like this. This takes the value of this, and this takes the value of this. That's how array structuring works. And if it is more than 2, we can put age 3. If we have more like that, so we put another value here, then age 3 is going to take the value of whatever is here like that. So as I said before, I'll link the link to the blog post I wrote about it. I'm going to link it in the description. I hope I don't forget. So we just want to return age 1 minus age 2 simply. So what does that do? It's going to sort the people array based on the age this time, based on the age, and it's going to log it into the console when I write console.log. Now whenever I sort it, remember that I'm not actually changing the people array because I'm copying it then storing it in this person's 2. Age 1 minus age 2 means if, let's say age 1, let's say these first two objects are item 1 and item 2 that we passed here. So we have 97 and 66 as the age, which we stored in age 1 and age 2 by writing item 1.age, item 2.age like that. So age 1 is going to be 97, age 2 is going to be 66. So 97 minus 66 is going to return a positive number. Returning a positive number from this function, because we just return age 1 minus age 2, is going to tell the sort method to make item 2 come before item 1 in the sorted array. So the object containing this item 2.age in this example is going to be before the object containing item 1.age. So it's that simple. I've explained that before. So I'll just say console.log persons 2 like that. So let me reload this. Okay, I've not commented this out, so let me just make this a comment, yeah, and reload it. So we now have this dot, which means we're having an array of objects. Let's look into them. The first one here is Jeff Bezos 65. Now we are comparing the array, we're sorting the array based on the age now. So the smallest age should come first. 65 followed by 66 followed by 66 followed by 76, then followed by 97. So we have now sorted this array based on the age. So I think that's very much understandable too. And if we want this to be in descending order, we can just say age 2 minus age 1 like this. So age 2 minus age 1, then coming back here and reloading it, we'll see that we are going to have this 97 is first now, the age 76 now, then 66, then 65, which means we are not sorting it in descending order. It's that simple. So I think in the next video, or because this video is becoming kind of too long, it's becoming too long, we can also sort arrays of arrays. So it's very simple. We can sort arrays of arrays like that. So let me Okay, let me see if I can just quickly create an example and do that too. So if you already know how we're going to do that, you might just skip this part. So let me comment it out. Then I'll say I want to copy this object again. I'm going to use it to construct the array this time. No, there's no need. So let me just say let people array should now be this array tab. Yeah, so I'll just write random names and stuff like that. So let me just say John 67, I'm 76. Then Alice 44. Then I don't know what to put here. Let me just say Dawn, like that. Whatever comes to my head. So let me just say 33, like that. So this is an array of arrays. So how exactly do we sort this? It's simple. We can just say people array dot sort, then passing a compare function. Let me use the normal function syntax that we use in ES5 this time. I like using semicolons. So people array dot sort, then we have this function. Now we can just say, sorry, I forgot to take in the parameters. So I'll say item 1, item 2, like that. So let's sort by the first, we are sorting by name here, and the names are the first items. So John, Alice, then Dawn. So we are sorting by, which means these are in the index 0. The names are in the first index, 0 index. Remember that array starts from index 0, 1, 2, like that. So I can just say name 1 again. Or if I don't want to store the names in separate variables, I can just say if item 1, then 0, because we're accessing the first the item that is inside, that is at the first position. So if it is greater than item 2, 0, then we want to return 1. So here I'm going to make this array to be sorted in descending order. Ascending order. Then we'll convert it to descending order. Then I'll say if item 1, 0 is less than item 2, 0. Hey, item 2, 0. Then I'll say return -1, else just return 0. So simple. Then I can now say console.log. What am I logging into the console? The people array. Like that. So we should have Alice come first, then Dawn, then John. Let's see. So here we have an array of arrays. Now we have Alice 44, Don, then John, which is A in Alice before D in Don before J in John. So we have actually sorted this array now by passing a custom compare function to the sort method. So that's it. If we want it to be sorted in descending order, we can just change -1 to 1 and 1 to -1, or we can change greater than here to less than and less than to greater than, any of the two. So let me just change this one. I've been changing that since. So I'm going to change greater than to less than and the less than to greater than. So simple. So reload this, and now the first item is now John, followed by Don, followed by Alice. Now we are sorting in descending order. So it's very simple. Now I think we've covered everything we have to cover. In the next video, we're going to be creating our own function that is going to help us generate these compare functions here. So the function is going to make, I'm going to make it open source because I'll share it on GitHub. You can use it in your own code too. We're going to be creating it together in the next video because it's going to be part 3, because this is actually part 2. The part 1 is, check it on my channel too, discussing the sort. Yeah, I really love that method, kind of simple and complex at the same time. So we've discussed about using the sort method to sort array of strings, array of numbers, array of objects, array of arrays, like that. So in the next video, we're going to be creating that function that will help us generate our own, generate compare functions, let me say it that way, simply, without you thinking of if this is greater than this, then you have to return this at this position. No. So we're just going to generate that compare function dynamically. So we're going to be doing that in the next video. Thank you. Mind you, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd like you to subscribe, and so you can get updates and you'll be notified. Also click on the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video, so you can get notified and watch. Thank you.